thought we could get a little more rigorous about the whole excitement thing. What gets excited when we get excited? Brains. Excited how? With electricity, which we can measure. So electroencephalography, electric brain writing, also known as EEG, less creatively. It's a measure of electrical activity along the scalp that reflects neural activity. It was first done with a human in 1924, and by the 30s was being used to diagnose epilepsy and probe underlying mechanisms for pathological brain activity like seizures. It remains an important tool for medical practice and neurological research. This little thing is a NeuroSky MindWave. It's a consumer EEG device. It's not terribly sophisticated, but it works. There we go. That is me. It's a little more jagged than it usually is. So here we are. What exactly is happening? The cells inside my head are interacting synchronously, activating, becoming excited if you will, millions at a time all at once, at particular frequencies. This activation requires that electrically charged ions be pushed out of the cells, and because they're similarly charged, these ions repel each other, creating a wave of charged ions that eventually reaches the surface of my scalp and can be detected. I've glossed over some details. Just know that all of our heads are actually pulsing with electricity at all times. This pulse happens at particular frequencies, so detected changes in charge along the scalp occur at regular intervals. These intervals can be measured and recognized, and we get a pattern. It's actually multiple overlapping patterns at different frequencies and amplitudes, which can be difficult to untangle. Fortunately, there are purpose-built microchips for this that are part of the little machine. This gives us, okay, activity bands. Oh, right. We have to go back and forth between the raw and not raw. Activity bands. This is the relative amplitude or intensity of different frequencies. The frequencies are helpfully labeled with colors. Right now, it looks like the machine thinks I am in mostly delta, maybe a little bit of theta. Let's see if that makes sense. It's not an exact science. Neither is this. This is NeuroSky's proprietary translation of these values that they encourage developers to use as the basis for apps and games and what have you. It's a little questionable. But anyway, programming. So all of this is about streams, including this, which is enough to get at what we are looking at. We can actually just, it's JavaScript or Node.js, and it just says, open a connection and pipe it to standard out. It's super simple, and that's part of what is exciting. We open a connection on the port that the little NeuroSky daemon exposes data on as it grabs it from the Bluetooth connection, and it pipes it to standard out, and there it is. So that's great. Now, it's slightly longer. We pipe it to a WebSocket connection, and you'll see why that happens. A WebSocket connection instead, so that we can beam it down to the browser and make little graphs. In addition to making little graphs, hold on. Boom! We'll do it again. It's pretty much cheating. The electrical discharge associated with a blink is actually an artifact caused by muscle contraction around my eyes. I'd rather not do it by controlling the reading of a particular frequency, but this didn't seem like the best time to rely on my ability to control those levels. To get to a place where EEG-controlled presentations are less risky, we are going to need some better machines, and we will have them. A company called Emotive makes one called the Epoch that has more electrodes and is a bit more expensive. They have a new model coming out soon that was kickstarted well beyond its funding goals. The Interaction News is another. Melon, also forthcoming, was also kickstarted by thousands of people. I think the kickstarting of these things is neat because it demonstrates other people are also excited about them. Most neat of all is the OpenBCI project, also kickstarted, which is an open source EEG machine based on Arduino. Their headset is a little more aggressive looking, but having more electrodes allows programs to figure out where synchronous activity is coming from, allowing precise correlations between intentional thoughts and EEG results, enabling things like flying a drone through an flying a drone through an you have to blink twice in rapid succession. Flying a drone through an obstacle course. Flying a drone through an obstacle course of balloons using only your mind. This is a project by a team at the University of Minnesota, and what's so exciting about it to me is that in addition to being awesome, is that I can at least understand how the parts fit together. It's an elaboration or expansion of things that I can already touch, as opposed to something totally foreign and magical. And that is what I'm excited about. The way being able to program with something like that makes the subject matter feel closer and more accessible. I was interested in brains before I learned to code. I like reading books about them. This certainly isn't the cutting edge of neuroscience, but playing around with programming it gave me a way to make an abstract interest into an active hobby. I think the way programming does this is by training us to think of things, all sorts of things, in terms of compatible interfaces, as capable of connecting one or more of the same sort of thing. The interface we get for our electric brain writer is the same one we get for other network connections, and this makes sense to us. We are just piping data from one thing to another. Sometimes it's electrical discharge across the skin of your head, sometimes it's a WebSocket, whatever. This attitude is incredible. It's an attitude that lends itself to demystifying things that might seem obscure or intimidating, and it gives us tools to explore and interact with them, and that's what excites me most about programming. Thanks.